Check this out. It's an article from InfoWars, the, again, owner of which, who is, is he still in court or has he been found guilty? I forget. Whatever the case is, illustrious site, lots of good information here. Great place to build your, life values from. Survey finds people who identify as left-wing more likely to have been diagnosed with a mental illness. The data speaks for itself. Posted by none other than Paul Joseph Watson. On February 12th, that's 8 days ago, fairly recent. A new survey of more than 8,000 people has found that those who identify with left-wing political beliefs are more likely to have been diagnosed with a mental illness. Okay, so that's the catchy subtitle. Let's get to the content. Ann Coulter's "liberalism is a mental disorder" catchphrase has become something of a cliched meme, but the data appears to support it. Carried out by Slate Star Codex, the online survey collected a wealth of data from respondents about their education, demographic, lifestyle, and political views. The results show that people who occupy the furthest left end of the political spectrum are more likely to have been formally diagnosed with depression, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia. In addition, the results show that the highest percentage of respondents, 38%, who admit being diagnosed with forms of mental illness also identify politically as Marxists. In comparison, just 12.1% of conservatives say they have been diagnosed with a mental disorder. While the survey is by no means scientific, it does give an insight into how disturbed people are more likely to be attracted to fringe leftist beliefs, which a lifestyle sense usually encourage degeneracy and a lack of moral responsibility. I've said before that Paul Joseph Watson is either a fascist or a Nazi, to be clear. So is Ann Coulter. I'm pretty sure Ann Coulter has actively started talking about like degeneracy and white birthrights. Paul Joseph Watson defended Nick Fuentes, on YouTube. PJW is 100%. I don't know where he stands with Jews, but he's either a fascist or a Nazi. He's unquestionably a white nationalist. It's not a myth that left-wingers are more mentally ill, said conservative commentator Milo Yiannopoulos, the pinnacle of mental wellness there. And it's not a surprise the internet has elevated crazy people with too much time on their hands to a central place in the national discourse. Unironically stated immediately after Milo Yiannopoulos' name was invoked. The social web is a social fucking catastrophe. Nice. So that's the PJW article right here. So what is the message that is being pushed? The message that is being pushed is that mentally ill people are left-leaning or mentally ill people or whatever, So, I mean, here's the data. Here's the range of error. It looks pretty solid. Let's dig into this for a second, okay? See, I have a sociology degree. One of the things that I was trained to look at was, statistical data. That's one of the things sociologists do. You take data and you interpret it. You try to see what you can derive from it. So let's take a look at this and see what might be wrong with it. So the narrative here, where is it? It's not a myth that left-wingers are more mentally ill. Notice how mental illness is being used as a catch-all phrase here. When I want to impugn somebody for being mentally ill, like, oh yeah, all Nazis are mentally ill. And I've said that before, that all Nazis are mentally ill or whatever, or most of them are. And I stand by that because every Nazi I have ever interacted with has been fucking crazy. Every time in DMs or on stream, every time I interact with a Nazi, these people are fucking lunatics. But when I say like these are the politics of left, like mental illness or whatever, I'm not usually saying depression, for example, because that's not really impugning a person's reasonability there. If a person's making an argument and you're like, wow, dude, you're so depressed, like, okay, that's not really a comeback. Now you can say like you're schizophrenic, you're paranoid or whatever. These impugn the rationality of the person that you're speaking to. Depression, not so much. So the fact that depression, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia are all lumped in together doesn't really exactly, tell us much. What if it's mostly depression that's accounting for these differentials? After all, trans people tend to experience a lot of anxiety and depression due to the, social stigma that they face. And most trans people, or hell, most LGBTQ people are going to be on the left. But that doesn't mean that, like, being mentally ill makes you leftist. It means usually that being socially maligned or being put in a minority category simultaneously makes you left-leaning and makes you depressed. You see? So in that case, you're not really proving your point here. Moreover, left-leaning people tend to be way more receptive when it comes to the reality and the scientific truth of mental illness. Paul Joseph Watson has literally said that depression isn't real. So this dude is a fucking idiot when it comes to mental health. And likewise, his followers probably are as well. So what if this is self-reported? What if left-leaning people are way, way, way more willing to be honest about their mental state, whereas right-leaning people who have been told that depression isn't a real thing, bootstraps, blah, 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 they're less willing to report that? Well, shit. I mean, accompanying the fact that this is apparently not a scientific study, according to him, I guess, and those two possible explanatory variables, this doesn't really support the argument that, like, lefties are crazy. It doesn't really support that idea. Not that lefties are made crazy, and not that crazy people become lefties. But you don't have to take it from me, folks, because the person who created this study then wrote an article denouncing Paul Joseph Watson's interpretation of it, which we can now go over. Hello, I love the first sentence. Hello to all the new readers I've gotten from Paul Watson of InfoWars. Before anything else, consider reading this statement by the CDC about vaccines. That's a pretty good one. I like that. Still here? Fine. InfoWars linked here with the headline we just saw. This is accurate only insofar as the result uses the publicly available data I provide. The claim about mental illness was made by Twitter user Philippe Lemoyne, going to assume I pronounced that correctly, and not me. In general, if a third party analyzes SSC data, I would prefer that media sources reporting on their analysis attributed to them and not to SSC. One of the greatest scourges of pseudo-intellectualism on the right wing is taking existing data but ignoring the analysis given by the person who collected that data. That's why they teach you in university, when you're actually studying this stuff, you need to be very highly trained and have a very good reason to take data from a survey that you are disagreeing with the survey like creators' conclusions on. You have to have a very good reason to do that. Nobody knows the data better than the person who actually created it, after all. So for you to take their information but then use it to their own ends and disagree with the things that are being said about it by the people who created that data, that's a really, really good way to create narratives that are not supported by the data provided. In general, as far as I can tell, Lemoyne's analysis is accurate enough, but it needs some clarifications. For one, both extreme rightists and extreme leftists are more likely than moderates to have been diagnosed with most conditions. Fair. I mean, that makes sense, right? If you're in the radical... There are many reasons why you can be diagnosed with mental illness. Depression, anxiety. Have you ever gone into poll on 4chan? Have you ever gone into poll? These people are hella doomer. Have you seen how doomer these people are? These people are constantly talking about their fucking suicidal ideation. Do not tell me that right-leaning people do not suffer from depression. Pull Kiwi Farms, all of these people have like gun barrels lined up against their jaws, like non-stop. These people all want to kill themselves because they're all fucking worthless fail sons that have convinced themselves that the reason they're failing in every conceivable aspect of their lives is because they haven't gotten a girlfriend, and the reason they haven't gotten a girlfriend is because the Jews have put out porn that has normalized interracial hypergamy, which is taking the white pussy away from the decent white man. So they have no choice but to spend their whole lives on the internet complaining about black people or whatever. These people all want to kill themselves. Yeah, R9K is also like a non-stop Suifu hellhole, undeniably. Number two, we talked about this. Leftists might be more likely to trust the psychiatric system and get diagnosed. My survey shows some signs of that. Liberals are 60% more likely than conservatives to have formal diagnosis of depression, but only 30% more likely to have a self-diagnosis of depression. There you go. Meaning that liberals are significantly more likely to seek professional help and professional diagnoses of their, mental health than conservatives are, which makes sense. Again, Paul Joseph Watson has literally said depression doesn't exist, which is a great thing, by the way, to tell all of your depression-addled, like, suicide contemplating doomer fan base that all of their failures are theirs, and not only that, but the feelings that they have of depression are actually just a symptom of their continual failure. Really good, really responsible stuff. Number 3, leftists might be more likely to think of their issues through a psychiatric lens than rightists, meaning that even the self-diagnosis numbers might be inflated. Absolutely. Every time I interact with right-leaning people or look at a right-leaning community, I see like the most visible evidence of fucking schizophrenia and paranoia that you could possibly see viewing from like an outside perspective. Like all the time, guys. Please, God, go into any like alt-right community. Like these people aren't well, but they think they're fine, This is literally the website for Alex Jones. Do not talk to me about conservatives having a poor understanding of their own sanity, okay? Holy shit. The SSC report is a bad sample to use for this, not just because it's unrepresentative, but because it might be unrepresentative of different political affiliations in different ways. For example, SSC Marxists really are surprisingly depressed, but maybe the only Marxists who would read an anti-Marxist blog are depressed Marxists looking for things to be miserable and angry about. I don't know where this data was collected from. Read through an anti-Marxist blog? So does that mean that the data was originally collected, like this polling was done, this self-reported polling was done from an anti-Marxist or something? From this person, perhaps? Does it say where the data comes from originally? Carried out by Slate Star Codex, the online survey collected a wealth. Yeah. Is this like an anti-left? No, this was just collected by them. Look, even the link that they provide now has a fucking edited forward denouncing Paul Joseph Watson's article. I don't know how exactly this data was collected. I don't know what this anti-Marxist blog is. I am curious about it, admittedly, but it is ultimately irrelevant to the points that are being made here. Is SSC anti-Marxist? Maybe. A commenter on Lemoyne's tweet links to this blog post by someone who found the same thing in the General Social Survey. The GSS is much larger and more rigorous than my survey, and there's no reason to care about what my survey has to say when there are GSS results available. Okay, interesting. So it seems as though this person's survey... Is this a link to the InfoWars thing? Interesting. So the survey was not like an official SSC data collection thing. So what we're ultimately being, left with, and thanks and seriously, vaccines are fine. What we're ultimately being left with here is the people who collected this data originally denouncing Paul Joseph Watson, providing myriad explanations as to why this might be A, non-representative, or B, might not even illustrate the point they're trying to prove, and digs at them a few times for their anti-vaccine shit. This is why any veneer of intellectualism that you see from conservatives needs to be held to the highest degree of scrutiny. The highest degree of scrutiny. Because these people lie all the fucking time. This is the only way in which they're capable of engaging with data, because data does not typically agree with them. I remember reading through the comments here, and they were pretty funny as well. InfoWars linked here. Do we panic now? I think we panic now. I think this is like a data collecting website, which is incredibly like nerdy, So here they are like discussing the data. That's cute. I'm glad they're having a good time over here. I wonder how much the comment section has been infiltrated by PJW fans. They sure a fucking lot of comments over here. Another possible confounder might come from the practical implications of these ideologies, meaning it's not holding leftist rightist ideas that causes mental illness, but secondary behavioral effects from these. This looks like actually like really good discourse. I think that's really cute. Look at these people. They're having a lot of fun. Oh, whatever the case may be. Yeah, PJW is pretty fucking stupid. The point is not demonstrated, and also I think it's crass considering how many fans of his undeniably have deep-seated mental illness for him to offhandedly dismiss the legitimacy of the of depression. That always gets me, Also, I'm pretty sure that like Paul Joseph Watson is an alcoholic. Hasn't he talked about that before? That he's like that he or people have talked about that before, where he like he's constantly drinking or something like that, or he would tweet all the time about going out to the pub. Or I remember people have commented on it in the past. Just from what I've seen of the guy, like his deep fucking eye sockets, he just doesn't look that well himself. I don't know how confident he is in his own claims that depression is not a real thing. I'd have trouble getting through the day too without getting drunk if I had his job. His lips are always glossy. Oh yeah, conservatives take blog stuff super seriously because again, it's all they have. Why do you think fucking alt hype, or what is his name now? What is his name now? What stupid LARPy Nosball name did he choose? Public veto. The public veto? Yeah, that's why like everything that he links to is blog posting, or like people's veto, or like centuries old data points that he's pulled from and ignored the actual analysis of the original author of the data. Mad Cat with the $1. What are your thoughts on the USSR under Stalin? Do you think it was state capitalist or socialist? It was never socialist. The workers never had anything even approaching control of the means of production at any point during Stalin's reign over the USSR. Not even fucking close. Somnio Static with the $5. Are there any rules on DLive? Yeah, there are rules on DLive. I just think they're a little bit more lax about them. Slate Star Codex is the anti-Marxist blog since the guy who runs it is a rational skeptic / lib. Smart guy though, interesting blog, but lots of reactionaries in the comments. Interesting. Well, that the commentary in the comment section seemed fairly well reasoned. I guess there are intelligent anti-Marxists out there. You know, they're wrong, but they're intelligent sometimes.